We're just going to talk about Zoom and just give a basic introduction of how it works, what it is, how to log in, and a few of the special features that Zoom offers us. So today, the computer's click. There we go. Okay. So today we're going to first talk about logging into Zoom, describe like the profile information and just generally how to navigate the interface. We'll talk about how to schedule a meeting, which will include inviting people to a meeting, and once you've scheduled a meeting, how to update it, and then any meeting setting, the meeting settings as well. And then hosting a meeting. We'll go through and demonstrate how hosting a meeting, what hosting a meeting looks like and how that will work. This is also where we'll be talking about a lot of the special features that Zoom offers. So let's begin. We're going to start by going to zoom.simmons.edu. You could also go to simmons.zoom.us. They both ultimately bring you to the same location. And so we're going to click this. And here we go. So you should be brought to this screen, at which point you're going to click sign in, and you'll sign in using your Simmons username and login, but clearly I've already done that, so I won't be doing this. But normally the Duo mobile login screen will pop up and you're typing your information there. And then you'll be brought to this page, which is your profile page, and you'll get your name, your personal meeting ID, personal link, and all this other information. Your personal meeting ID and personal link are used if you're going to be meeting with the same people routinely. This is just like a constant ID, constant essentially meeting link that can be used for you to have a standing meeting essentially. It doesn't change and it's always there. The only downside to having this is if somebody has your meeting ID and you're doing a meeting and maybe you don't want them in the meeting, they can still join the meeting because they know your meeting information. So again, this is generally for if you're meeting with the same group of people routinely. And you can change your profile information by clicking edit. You don't have to do any of this, but you're allowed to select your country, add a phone number, and add your company or organization name there. Same thing if you want to change your personal meeting ID, you can edit this here. This needs to be a number. You can't choose words or anything, so you have to select a number that means something to you. I believe this number is actually the COCIS Technologies phone number. That's our phone number. I selected that. And your personal link, you can choose words, your name or whatever you want. I chose COCIS Media Lab for now. And that's basically it for the profile. Ooh, rolling. All right. And so next, we're going to talk about how to, well, actually, let me just demonstrate this a little bit more. So if you go over here, you can click Meetings, and this will show you the list of meetings that you have scheduled. So as you can see, I have a recurring meeting, which will be future COCIS Tech workshop series. This one is not being done as a Zoom meeting due to the fact that it would be a Zoom meeting about a Zoom meeting, and that would just get a little messy. And then this list town hall, which is coming up on Thursday. So we don't have webinars as part of Simmons, so that actually doesn't do us any good. Personal audio conference we probably don't really need to deal with right now. And recordings. If you've made a recording, this is where they will show up. You can also share your recordings with various people, and if you've requested that a Zoom meeting be recorded and edited by the Media Lab for inclusion on our YouTube page, you will need to share your recording with me, with the Media Fellow, which you can do by just internally share this recording. Yours can download. You will definitely want me to be able to download it, otherwise I can't do anything with the video. And then you'll just copy and paste me this link, and send me an email with the information. All right. So this is where your cloud recordings will go, and the settings page, this is your account profile. Let's actually go here first. This just gives you the general information about the Simmons account. All right, and then the settings. So this is the settings page where you can choose a whole bunch of different settings for your meetings, how people will log in, the different capabilities that you'll allow, and that kind of stuff. And I'll go through these in more detail shortly. These are your recording settings, how the meeting will be recorded, what you'll record, and where it'll be saved, that kind of stuff. Again, I'll go over this in more detail. And telephone, I don't think we'll be using this so much, but again, these are options that you have available. I will not be going over this, but you can scroll through it and read it. The great thing about Zoom is they're very clear for the most part in telling you what each of these different settings mean. So it's very useful. Okay, so meeting settings. You may choose that you want to start your meetings with your video on, with your host video on. It's just selected here. Participant video, you can choose whether participants can enter the meeting with their video on or off. In this case, I've selected that participants can start with their video on, but they may choose, I don't want to, and that decision is ultimately up to them, but you're giving them the ability to enter the meeting with their video on here. Audio type, this is how people can join the audio, how they can enter the discussion, and I've selected telephone and computer audio to allow for the most diverse ways of entry. All right, join before host. Again, that's what it stands for. Choose that. Personal meeting ID. Again, this is what we talked about earlier, if you're using your personal meeting ID for meetings or whatnot. I've checked these off because I don't have meetings with the same group of people and I don't particularly need that to be a thing, so I just set that off. Required a password when scheduling new meetings. I decided I didn't need that, so that was off. And same thing with all of this stuff. Require a password for personal meeting ID. That might be useful, let's say, again, if you have a group meeting, but maybe not everybody's always there, then this might be a good way to be like, hey, you need a password for each meeting that you join through your personal ID. And I've also selected to mute participants upon entry because that's just a good way to keep things relatively quiet for the presenter initially. But you can obviously deselect this if you'd rather have everybody enter and be able to speak immediately. Again, they can change this, or you can change this once the meeting has begun. Meeting reminder, again, what it sounds like. Here we go. So chat, I think, is usually a good thing to have on. This allows people to basically type messages to each other. Private chat, this will, instead of only allowing the participants to talk to the entire group, this will allow them to talk specifically to one person of their choice. I've elected to autosave chats for future reference, but again, you can turn that off if you don't want those to be saved. Play sound when participants join or leave. A lot of people might want this on just to know that a new participant has joined. I've turned it off for the sole purpose that when I record a meeting, sometimes that beep you don't want that in the recording, but again, you can decide what you want to do. File transfer is just a way that people can send a file through the chat. Again, all of the stuff you guys can scroll through. Co-host, I think, is very important, at least for me, because I do a lot of collaborative Zoom meetings where I might not be the host, or maybe I am the host, but there's somebody else who I want to be able to run the meeting in my stead if I'm not able to be there. And this allows you to select specific people within Simmons to basically be a co-host of your meeting. So you are the host, but you need somebody else to have the same features, to have the same capabilities of you during the meeting, and that will give them the same abilities. They will be able to start the meeting in your stead. They'll be able to end the meeting, record the meeting. Yeah, and polling is just if you want to allow a poll through the meeting, which we'll discuss later. Okay. Whiteboard is another interesting feature that we'll discuss. It's checked on because I think it's a nice feature to have available, even if I may never use it. The remote control allows you to give somebody or request access to somebody else's screen where you can like remotely control their mouse and screen and everything. And a little weird, don't super like it, but it's a good feature to have if it becomes necessary. All right. And nonverbal feedback is things like raising hands or clapping or saying yes or no through the chat box, essentially. All right. And these are some other interesting features down here, some of which we'll discuss later, like the breakout room, remote support, and stuff we don't really need to discuss right now. Yeah, so these are just the general settings that you have available to you. Attention tracking, let's say you're in a class, you're using Zoom for a class, perhaps a professor wants to know, like, hey, are you watching the Zoom meeting, or are you maybe like doing something else while having me on in the background? Or anybody can do this, really. But if you turn this on, then it lets the host see if a participant has Zoom on in the background while they're doing other stuff. And they can't see what you're doing, but they know that Zoom is not front and center on the screen. All right, and that's what attention tracking is. And you can also live stream directly from Zoom, which some people do. You can live stream directly to Facebook or YouTube, which is a nice feature. Yeah. Scheduling privileges. This one is interesting because you can give somebody else, within Simmons, you can give somebody else the ability to schedule meetings on your behalf. Or you can give someone else the ability to schedule meetings, for you, or you can schedule them on their behalf. Yeah, that's basically it. So if you don't think you'll always be able to do it, or you want to give somebody else the privilege of doing so, you can click this little button, add them, and then type their name here. Click assign. All right, the recording settings are more useful, again, if you want to record the meeting, but they're especially useful for me if you want them recorded for the Media Lab, for the COCIS Media Lab YouTube page. And these are the general settings that I would recommend for my purposes. Local recording just allows you to save it to your computer. Cloud recording, again, saves it to this recordings cloud area that I showed you earlier. And if you save a cloud recording, these are what you can elect to save. And I've selected all of these because the more I have to work with, the better the final edited video is most likely to be. I've shut automatic recording off because you don't always want to be recording right away. So I've selected that. So. So these are just the recommended settings that I have. Again, if you want to record a meeting, especially if you want to include it on the YouTube page, then you really should get consent of everybody in the recording, because otherwise it's just not, you don't want to record somebody without their consent. All right. And scheduling a meeting, joining a meeting, hosting a meeting are all up here. So if you want to schedule a meeting, you can go here. If, let's say, it's time to join a meeting that you've been invited to, you can click this button. And hosting a meeting, you can immediately start an impromptu meeting from this from this drop-down arrow. But for now, we're going to talk about how to schedule a meeting. Okay. So schedule a meeting, you'll click the schedule a meeting button, and then you'll type a name or topic for the meeting. So let's say example meeting. And if you want, you can include a description, but again, this is not required. You will need to choose a date and time for this meeting. So let's put it for today at, what time is it now? Okay. Let's keep it at 12, that's fine. And then you'll choose a duration. You can also select this to be a recurring meeting if it's going to be happening, with relative frequency, and you can still choose how often or when, and if there's no fixed time, then that's, it's just sporadically when you feel like it. All right. You can require participants to register for the meeting. This is good if you want to have a more or less exact count of who will be attending. Again, this is who's allowed to enter with their video on or have their video on throughout the meeting. And the audio, which audio the participants can enter with. And then these are just general meeting options. You can require a password again, just to say, hey, you need to be able to know this special word to join, and before host, and all this other stuff. And right here, this is where you can add an alternative host. So this is the co-host. This is where you can type in somebody's Simmons email address. You'll want their full Simmons email address most likely. So actually, let me scroll up. Maybe I can find it. Profile. Okay, so you see the sign-in email? This is the email you need to type in to give somebody co-host privileges. If you type in just Skaza, which is another email address of mine at simmons.edu, it's not going to work because it's not actually connected to this account, so you need to type in their full email address, the one that is connected to their account, which can be a little bit of a pain to figure out if you're unsure. All right, but that's generally how to save a meeting. So we're going to go here. I'm just going to click save. All right, and so then it's been saved. And at this point, this is where you can invite attendees or, invite participants to your meeting. You can either add it to a Google Calendar and then invite people that way. If you want to do that, you will need to integrate Zoom with your Google Calendar, which can be tricky, and I probably will not cover in the scope of this tutorial, but you can look up the information, and it's on the available handouts, which will be in the COCIS Tech Lab as well. Right, but you can copy the invitation, copy the meeting invitation, open your email, and just paste that into the body of the email and send it to whomever you want to attend. All right. There you go. If you want to add a poll, you can add a poll here. It's kind of interesting, but again, unnecessary in the live stream. This live streaming you do once the meeting has been started. You can't do anything with it right now. This just shows you the available locations that you can live stream to. All right. Okay. So let's say now that you've had this meeting, it's been a couple days, and you're like, I need to change the date or the time, or you need to change something about the meeting. Okay, so then you would go to your meetings page. You click this button, and it brings you here, which we already did, and then you find the meeting that you want to edit. We're going to edit our example meeting. This is also where you can choose to start a meeting or delete it if it's no longer going to happen. To edit it, you're going to actually click on the name of the meeting, which will bring you back to the meeting details page. And on this page, you'll scroll down to the bottom, or right here, actually, and then just click edit this meeting, which will bring you back to the editing creation page, I suppose. And then you can just change whatever whatever information you want. We're going to deselect recurring. We're going to set it to 12. And we'll go from there. And save. Alright, and the meeting has been saved. Everything has been updated. Not too difficult. Alright, so now let's talk about, actually let's talk about joining a meeting. So if you've been invited to a meeting and you've gotten an email with this information, you can do one of two things. You can either click this link, which should bring you to the login screen. Let's see if we can call it. All right, and then it's going to bring you to the correct URL for the meeting. We don't want to do this right now. I'll go through this when we actually host the meeting, but this is generally how you would start the meeting. So I'm going to actually X out of this. Goodbye. The other thing you could do is copy and paste the meeting ID, just the ID number. Copy. Okay, close that. And then you go up to join a meeting. So once you've logged in, or even before you've logged in, you can click join a meeting. If you have not logged in, it will prompt you to log in. But once you click join a meeting, and then you'll paste in the meeting ID, which is that, and then you'll click join, and the same thing happens. Yay! Okay. Oops, my bad. That was wrong. So that is how you can join a meeting. You can also host a meeting. You can do an impromptu meeting by hovering over the host a meeting button. You didn't schedule this meeting in advance. It was not planned. You're just like, I need to meet. Let's meet. And I'll go over that. Let's just do that now since I'm talking about it. So you can do it with video on or with video off. Let's do it with video off for now. Okay. This is how you basically install the Zoom client, which surprisingly you can do basically on any computer. I don't know if it uninstalls it on the Simmons computers, but on your personal laptop or computer, once you've installed it, it should be there permanently. Actually, we were hosting a meeting, so let's sign in. And if you sign in this way, you're going to want to sign in with SSO because it's connected to Simmons. So we're going to type in Simmons.zoom.us and enter. Yay! All done. And this should be opening the client. There it is. Okay. And we can host a new meeting, which we did not want to do before because we installed this. Had we not chosen to install this, it probably would have just opened up. Oh, look at it, and there we are. The video's on. Okay. And we're going to join with computer audio. You can also test it ahead of time, which is generally recommended. But actually, let's just do that just to show you how that works. Yes, we want to hear the ringtone, and yes, we do hear it. Okay, so now it's going to record us, and we'll see if we can hear ourselves speak. Yes. Perfect. We're good. Join with computer audio. I don't need to click it again up here. Join with computer audio. Awesome. Okay. So now we've joined a Zoom meeting. This is our impromptu Zoom meeting. We have not scheduled this one, so there is no chance that anybody is coming because we told nobody about it. All right. So then we would just go to invite, and we could invite. These are all the people. These are all the Simmons people in the Simmons system. You can invite them directly through this, but this is probably not a good idea, as many people probably have not installed the client. You can also send them an email request. This is probably the best way to do it, is just select Gmail. You do that and you're already logged into Gmail, it will open your Gmail account and it should auto-populate the body of an email for you with the Zoom meeting information. And then in the to column, you can just type in the names of whoever you want to join the meeting and send it. But I'm not going to do any of this. So we're just going to exit. And then okay. So that's basically how you can invite somebody to an impromptu meeting. And we're going to end this meeting and go on to the next step. And okay. I'm actually just going to minimize this for now. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start and host our scheduled example meeting. So now we'll go to our meetings. We'll find our example meeting, which will be today, and then we'll just click start. Should be brought to the same screen, and then we'll open up our client again. If you do not open up the client, you can also just run it directly from your browser. The only caveat with that is that you do lose some features. There are some features that are not available via the internet. So what is that called? Yeah, so there are some features that you need the client to access. All right, but I'm not gonna test it because we already did that, and I'm just gonna join with computer audio. Okay, so here we are again. This is our scheduled meeting, and everything's basically the same. This is where you can change the inputs and outputs of your audio. So you can select where your which microphone you're using, speaker you're using, and you can also test things if they seem to not be working, which does happen on occasion. These are your video settings, so you can choose to stop the video, which does not stop the meeting, but just, you know, kind of blanks your screen so they can't look at you anymore. All right. Again, this is the invite thing, same thing we showed you. This is where you can add a poll. So if you have like a question that you want to send to the audience in general, you can add a question here. You can also do this before the meeting, but let's say you didn't think about it ahead of time, or you forgot, or you just didn't have any questions. You can add them in the midst of the meeting. Okay. And so then this will pop up, and you can type your question. Do you prefer apple? Oh, that is not apples. Apples or oranges? And oh, actually, that was the full name. My bad. Okay. Example. And then you can choose apples, oranges. All right, and so we're just going to do a one question poll. Okay. And then you'll scroll down and click save. Okay, so now you've added a poll to the meeting. We want to find a meeting, which is right here. Okay. And you want to poll, right? So you can launch the poll here. You'll click this and it will get sent out to all of your attendees. We don't have any attendees at the moment, so we're not going to worry about sending it out. but this is generally speaking how that works. Okay. You'll also get all the data. It will get sent to you, and you'll be able to analyze it if you want. This is the chat feature. So you can, from here, you can chat with all the different participants. You can also, here you should be able to type a message specifically to an individual as opposed to everybody. But again, since there's nobody else in the meeting, we cannot do that. That's seeing everyone publicly or privately. This is where you can select who they are allowed to speak to. So they can maybe only speak to you, they can't chat at all, or they can only speak to everybody at once. Again, I gave them more options, and this is where you can upload a file to share, should you so desire. All right. Yeah, we're not going to do that, but again, just kind of how it works. This is just a brief overview. Okay, and this is record. This is what you'll press if you want to record the meeting. I generally like to record to the cloud because it just gets saved automatically to Zoom, and from where I can share it with people or download it, do what I need to. I think it does delete itself after a set amount of time, so you do want to be careful about that. But recording it to the computer is not a bad idea either. If you do that, you will need to make sure you have a USB drive or some way to save it not onto a Simmons computer, because it will definitely get deleted if you leave it there. Maybe move it to Google Drive or wherever, but yeah, it's just something to be aware of. Closed captioning is an interesting feature. It does require that you assign somebody to type all the notes, which is very difficult. You can also use a third-party CC service, but I don't know how many of us have that. But this is a really great feature if you want to add closed captioning to the entire recording. Makes it a little bit more accessible for people. All right, in the breakout rooms, let's see, hold on, let me double check. Okay, so this more is where you can choose to live stream, and you will just select the service that you wish to live stream to. I'm not going to do that, but that is how that one will work. Okay, so the breakout rooms. Let's say you have many participants and you're having a big group discussion, but then you want to break people out into like smaller groups so they can have a small group discussion. But the breakout room allows you to do that. So instead of having a giant group discussion with everybody talking at once, this allows you to put people into small groups, and they can just chat amongst themselves for the time being until you decide that, hey, small group time is over. So you'll select this, and you can choose to either have the participants randomly and automatically assigned through Zoom, or you can manually add them. We don't have any participants except for us at the moment, so there are 0 participants. But this is also where you can select how many rooms, which will ultimately decide how many people per room, per group. So let's say we had 6 people, we wanted groups of 3, we would do 2 rooms, and it would, put 3 and 3 together. All right. That manually allows you to decide who goes with who. But that's just a really neat feature that Zoom offers. Okay. Let's see. You should also be able to share your screen, which I'm looking for but do not see at the moment. Actually, it's within the chat feature too that you should have the ability to raise a hand. But again, I think because we don't have any participants that these options are not available to us. But I am looking for the sharing screen. Oh, here it is. Duh, right in front of me, this green part. So this is where you can choose to share your screen, or who can share their screen, and different options of sharing your screen. This is actually where it gets kind of neat. Okay, so you can choose to share your entire desktop, so they just see whatever you have up on the screen, the entire screen, all at once. You can choose to share a portion, just a window of your screen, or just like a specific section. If you've plugged in an iPad, or I'm sorry, if you have AirPlay, an iPad, or an iPhone, you can share that via AirPlay. You can also plug in your phone, and this will allow you to plug in your phone to the computer that you're using. This will enable you to share the screen of your phone as well. But the whiteboard feature is kind of neat, so we're gonna talk about that. Actually, hold on, before I do that. These are the general sharing screen features. Advanced, you can just share the computer audio, so it shouldn't pick up what you're saying, and it should only be picking up the sounds. Well, actually, I guess it would still pick up what you're saying, but it won't share your screen. It'll just share the sounds that your screen is making as you click around. Like, you know, if you get the ding ding or whatever. If you're using a document camera, this might be a good thing to use. And the portion of the screen is really neat because it allows you to select the area. So let's say you just wanted to view this little corner over here. It allows you to select the specific area that you're sharing with the viewers. So that's slightly different than the window because that shows a portion of your screen, whereas this only shares that window with the people. All right, and now we're going to go into the whiteboard. So we're going to share whiteboard, you select it. You can also select these other options down here, but I'm not going to click either of them. I'm going to click share. Okay, and so then you get a whiteboard, which you can then draw on, and other people can request the ability to draw on it. Actually, I think other participants can draw on it themselves already. You have the ability to type. You can select, so this allows you to say, this is text, so you can type that. I think everybody's a different color. I don't know if you can change. Yeah. Okay. You can change the color of it through format. Oh, now it's purple. Oh, now it's black. There you go. I don't actually know what Spotlight does. Find out. Oh, this is basically like a little pointer. Hey, pay attention to this text over here. So there you go. Okay. And stamps. It's just a fun little tool that Zoom makes available. All right. And you can also use this if you want to clear the entire screen. And I think that's basically it. If you want to stop sharing, you'll go up here. This is also where different people can request the ability to do different things. Yeah. You can pause the share if you want to pause in the middle of it. You're like, hey, I don't really want to stop it, but like I don't want them to see this portion. Maybe if you're logging in and you don't want them to see your username or password, you can pause it and they won't be able to see that. But that's basically it. And we're just going to stop share, come back to the video, and I think that basically covers all the general meeting features that I wanted to share with you guys. We talked about joining a meeting, recording a meeting, and yeah. So I think that's it. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'll end this meeting. And I'll do my best to answer you. All right. I hope you've enjoyed that brief tutorial and introduction to Zoom. It was very cursory. We didn't go into depth of anything, and you may or may not know about a lot of the things that I talked about. But I hope you find this helpful. And again, if you have any questions, please send me an email. You can email me at medialab@simmons.edu, and I'll do my best to answer. All right. I hope you've had a good day. Bye. I lied. We're not going to say goodbye yet, because if you have additional questions, yes, you can ask me, but there are also additional tutorials that you can access that will provide you, maybe slightly more professional and useful information. So there's the Linda course on learning Zoom. That was one of the things that I watched while preparing for this, and that was very useful. Zoom also has their own video tutorials on how to use Zoom, which I've also found very useful in understanding things. And then Simmons Tech has their own guide on how Zoom works. And they are really the ones that have selected the service and probably best know how to operate it. So really, if you have any questions troubleshooting, you might want to start with this guide or talking to them, because this is very Simmons specific and very much, hey, this is the Zoom that we have. This is how it works within the system, our system. Yeah, okay, so these are the tutorials that I would recommend that you use, or additional resources. And this is where I'd ask if you've had any questions. All right, thank you.